Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 135 based on novel. So let's start. There were thunders everywhere. Between heaven and earth, a dark thunder fiercely collided with a black light. In a short moment, the two had collided with each other hundreds of times. The ripples of terrible energy like destroying the sky and the earth were constantly sweeping across the void. Dan Lei, who could have temporarily prevailed by virtue of the power of heaven and earth, after 100 moves with the North King, after all, it gradually fell into the disadvantage. As a puppet, the North King has no sense of fighting with him. As long as Xiao Yan doesn't stop, the North King will fight with his opponent endlessly. What's more, in the face of Dan Lei, no matter how strong the Dan Lei is, he can only be gradually swallowed up by him and become a part of the strength of the North King. The immortal body, coupled with the strange ability of becoming braver and braver in battle, which is the terror Dan Lei in the hearts of most herbalists, is the best medicine for Beiwang to improve his strength. Bang! As a loud bang came out, this time, the Dan Lei was smashed in the North King's hand by his hard fist. Under the North King's hand, such a big Dan Lei was smashed into pieces. Before the thunder dispersed, a terrible suction suddenly gushed out of the North King's body, which was specially used to deal with thunder. In a twinkling of an eye, all the Dan Lei shattered all over the sky were swallowed up by the North King. At the same time, the purple and gold streamer on the North King's body gradually becomes more and more clear. From now on, the purple and gold streamer has covered most of the North King's body. Looking at this appearance, I think it won't be long before the North King can be promoted to Duty. At that time, Xiao Yang won't be afraid even in the face of the strong Duty. After the Northern King absorbed all the Dan Lei, the dark thunderclouds rolled violently again in the 9 days. Compared with the previous time, Xiao Yang can even feel the deep destructive power from the thunderclouds at the moment. If Xiao Yang can bear the blow himself, I'm afraid Xiao Yang will be injured in the future. However, it's a pity that the Northern King is around. Even if Dan Lei is strong, he is doomed to have no choice but Xiao Yang today. Boom! The earth-shaking thunder came again. The indifferent Beiwang also raised his eyes again. A pair of empty eyes stared at the sky. At the moment, there was a violent billowing thundercloud. Immediately, with a bang, Beiwang suddenly grasped his hands, stepped on the void with the soles of his feet, and the void under his feet suddenly collapsed, and Beiwang's body shape, it was also like a sharp arrow. It crossed the void in an instant, but it rushed into the thundercloud. Boom! Then, the rolling thunderclouds fluctuated more violently, and thunders were fired indiscriminately, which seemed to want to forcibly blast out the North King who rushed into the thunderclouds. In this way, the thunderclouds at this time were like sheep intruded by wolves. For the North King's strange ability, even if the thunderclouds broke out with all their strength, but after all, it is difficult to resist the terrible swallowing power of the North King. Invisibly, when Xiao Yang looked up again, he found that the vast thundercloud that had covered the whole sky had only a distance of tens of feet. Under Xiao Yang's gaze, the thundercloud at the moment was rapidly weakening while rolling violently. Even, Xiao Yang can clearly see that the thunder cloud at the moment is shrinking rapidly with the naked eye. I'm afraid it will be completely absorbed by the North King in a moment. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang is not happy but worried. Although the North King has reached the critical point of breaking through the fighting emperor, it is also difficult to break through without enough thunder. At the moment, the Dan Lei is about to be consumed, but I don't know whether the North King can successfully enter the fighting emperor before the Dan Lei disappears completely. At this time, far away from the sky, a group of powerful emperors and a half also flew towards the position of Xiao Yang at the moment. From a distance, they saw that the thundercloud was shrinking rapidly, which could not help but make the speed of people flying forward faster. Finally, above the sky, the thunderclouds dissipated completely, and the last ray of thunder turned into a thunder snake. In a flash, it was inhaled by the North King for refining. Seeing Dan Lei dispersed, the color of the North King almost turned into purple and gold. However, despite RAO, it was still dark in the North King's eyes. Obviously, although Beiwang's strength has been greatly improved, and even enough to call it Do Di, if it is divided according to the actual situation, there is still a gap between Beiwang and the real star Do Di. This alone is enough to make Beiwang unable to defeat the strong Do Di. Of course, if we really want to put it in the same breath, today's Beiwang can also be called the Fighting Emperor. There is no rival under the Fighting Emperor. Although the Beiwang is not the Fighting Emperor, it is also better than the Fighting Emperor. It can be said that today's Beiwang is a quasi-Fighting Emperor. Alas, damn it, Dan Lei, If only he could support it for a while more, otherwise, the North King would be able to successfully enter the Do Emperor. What a pity! What a pity! Xiao Yang sighed a little reluctantly in his heart. Then he turned his eyes back to the medicine tripod in front of him. He glanced away, and the printing formula in his hand changed rapidly. In the twinkling of an eye, a flame ring was added to the second-order pill, which is the chemical pill ring. Looking at the pills in the medicine tripod, Xiao Yang's mouth gradually raised a comfortable smile. Soon, the big hand called, and the cover of the beast tripod opened. Then, a round pill like jade fell into Xiao Yang's hand. Casually received the pill. Xiao Yang turned his eyes and looked at the direction of Hanshi City. Xiao Yang could clearly notice that in that direction, at this moment, a large group of people were coming to him quickly. It's not hard to imagine that those people must have been attracted by the Dan Lei triggered by their previous refining of pills. However, even if they come now, it's too late. The Dan Lei has dispersed and the pills have fallen into Xiao Yang's hands. No matter how fast these people come, they are useless after all. Hey, boy, why be anxious? Although your puppet hasn't really reached the level of fighting emperor, it's fast. Moreover, there is still a powerful force of thunder in Beiwang's body. It's not easy as long as Beiwang completely absorbs the force of thunder and enters the fighting emperor. At this time, the light laughter full of banter came from Yu Yu. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang could not help looking a little stunned. Even if he quickly recovered, he looked happy. He knew that since the Bone Yudu spoke, he must know what the North King should do to quickly raise his strength to the level of fighting emperor. Old Bone. Hey, I told you not to be too anxious about anything. It's always bad to be too eager for quick success and instant benefit. However, you puppet is really a monster. You can use the power of thunder for yourself. I think you have accumulated a lot of thunder power in your puppet. As long as he can absorb all the thunder power, he will be promoted to the fighting emperor. It's not difficult. When those semi-imperialist strong men came to Xiao Yang's place, it was already empty. There was nothing left between heaven and earth except a pothole mountain range. On their deathbed, they were disappointed. Although they could smell the faint residual smell of Danxiang in the air, they could not determine the direction of the alchemist's departure by this alone. So, even if everyone wants to find out the origin of the pill, they can't find it. When the people came home bitterly, Xiao Yang had returned to Hanshi City again. At present, there is less than half a month left before the opening of the ancient ruins. In the remaining half a month, Xiao Yang doesn't intend to go elsewhere or practice in the house. Instead, he wants to take advantage of this half a month to have a good rest. Since leaving the Shalin Mountains, Xiao Yang has been on his way and fighting with people all the way. Although this experience can improve Xiao Yang's strength at the fastest speed, at the same time, after the battle, Xiao Yang also left a lot of hidden wounds in his body. Although those secret injuries seem insignificant, they can be easily suppressed as long as they rely on the pill, but the pill is still a foreign object after all. Without rest, they continue to accumulate injuries in the body. Although it seems nothing, once a little makes a lot and a lot of work turns into illness, it is not a good thing for Xiao Yang's cultivation in the future. In addition, there are many residual powers left in Xiao Yang's body after using pills. Those powers also need to be eradicated. Otherwise, if they accumulate for a long time, they will affect Xiao Yang's cultivation sooner or later. On the way back to his residence, Xiao Yang did not forget to use his soul power to explore the city. Sure enough, under the exploration of Xiao Yang's soul power, the changes in Shalin City today are not small compared with half a month ago. In Shalin City at the moment, the number of semi-imperial strongmen alone is twice as much as that in Hanshi City before. In this regard, there are still a large number of semi-imperial strongmen gathering here outside the city. In today's Shalin City, it can be described as a sea of people. As far as you can see, there are surging heads. There is a lot of noise. The whole city is full of a prosperous and lively atmosphere. What Xiao Yang noticed most was that in Shalin City at the moment, even the strong fighting against the emperor had more than 10 figures. These strong fighting against the emperor also came here for this ancient relic. Look at this, the attraction of the ancient ruins is not small. A low whisper in his heart, invisible, Xiao Yang's heart couldn't help pouring out a pressure. The strong man of fighting the emperor still has a great threat to Xiao Yang today. Although the strength of the North King in Naji is comparable to that of fighting the emperor, Xiao Yang still has no place to stand in Shalin City where many strong men of fighting the emperor gather only by virtue of the North King. I'm afraid this trip to ancient relics will be more difficult than Xiao Yang imagined. While Xiao Yang and the crowd were crowding forward, outside Shalin City, on the edge of the northern sky, several thick smells came suddenly, and the most noticeable one was one of them. The strength of the smell was even more frightening. Huh! At the moment when he noticed the breath, Xiao Yang's face immediately changed. He could clearly feel that the master of the breath was a strong man fighting the emperor. Moreover, if he was placed in Shilin City at the moment, he would definitely be the strongest. 3 stars fight the emperor. I couldn't help but show a dignified look in my eyes. I thought that this ancient relic could attract ordinary 2-star fighting emperor strong men at most, but Xiao Yang never thought that such an ancient relic could attract this level of fighting emperor strong men. The 3-star fighting emperor, although it is in the ranks of the strong fighting emperor, it can only be called a low-level fighting emperor, but if it is in this situation in Shilin City, a strong fighting emperor of 3-star is enough to crush everyone in the city. How can it be? Although this relic has great attraction, it is not enough to let the 3 stars fight the emperor. In his heart, Xiao Yang whispered in a very dignified voice. The face covered by Xiao Yang's black robe looked dignified. Then, the look in his eyes changed again. A group of people in the northern sky had come over Shilin City. Until now, Xiao Yang realized that there was another fighting emperor among those people, and his breath was better than the former. Then he will be too weak, but Rao is so. After exploring the real strength of the strong man, Xiao Yang still couldn't help frowning. In Xiao Yang's heart, he suddenly understood that no wonder the strength of these people would be so extraordinary. No wonder the strength is so strong. It was originally from the Zhou family. Tut, it is worthy of being the first of the 4 families. Even the younger generation of the family is so strong. We can see the strength of the Zhou family. He couldn't help but exclaim. Immediately, Xiao Yang looked deeply at the old man. After a long time, his eyes slowly moved away and turned to the old man's side. Beside the old man, at this moment, a young man with a handsome face and proud eyebrows was standing with his head held high after his hands were down, and he was the 2-star fighting emperor Xiao Yangang had just detected. I have to say that at this age, he has reached the level of 2-star fighting emperor. I'm afraid the young man will be extraordinary in the future. If he grows up, he will have a place among the top powers in the western regions in the future. This Shui family is really unusual. To cultivate such an outstanding younger generation, the whole family must have paid a lot of cultivation resources. It is not difficult to see how profound the Shui family is when it can cultivate a younger generation to this level. Slightly nodded, his eyes slowly flashed over the young man. Xiao Yang's eyes continued to look back. Behind him, there were several handsome men and women. Everyone's faces also had a look of arrogance, but they were too much inferior to the former. While everyone's attention fell on this group of people, the old man with long eyebrows turned his eyes fiercely, and a pair of sharp eyes instantly looked at the eastern sky. At the same time, Xiao Yang, who was in the crowd, also looked at the eastern sky when the old man turned his head. At this moment, there is an equally powerful breath, flying rapidly in the direction of Shilin City. Who are these people? Are they from the 4 families? Seeing the Zhou family, Xiao Yang had doubts about another breath that suddenly appeared at the moment. I'm not sure, it will be another of the 4 families. Ha, Zhou Bentang, I haven't seen you for a long time. Before people arrived, a voice full of rebellious voices came like thunder. The voice was so loud that even the sky could not help trembling slightly. Hua, I haven't seen you for so many years. I didn't expect you to break through the 3 stars. Hearing the arrogant laughter, the leader of the Zhou family, the old man called Zhou Bentang, replied coldly. Ha, Zhou Bentang, it's you. After so many years, how can your strength still stay in the early days of the 3-star fight against the emperor? Are you sleeping all these years? Above the sky, a group of people in brocade robes slowly landed on the ground. A rugged old man was staring at Zhou Bentang with sarcasm at the corners of his mouth, and his words were even more impolite. When the passers-by around him saw these people coming down, they also hurried back to a huge open space. When they looked at Zhou Bentang and Hua, their eyes were full of fear. 3-star fighting emperor, this is the real strongest in Shilin City. If anyone dares to offend him, they can be killed here with a slap. Who dares to provoke such a strong man? At the moment, the scene between Hua and Zhou Bentang is like the Sun family and Bai family Xiao Yang saw before. Although these families are under the command of Tianjian clan, their relationship with each other is not friendly. On the contrary, they have been in a state of deep water and fire for so many years. Of course, you don't have to think about it. The 4 families have been fighting each other for so many years. There must be Tianjian sect operating in the dark. He doesn't want the 4 families to fight completely or calm them down. After all, His purpose is just to expand their own details. Although this move seems quite stubborn, people with a clear eye can understand immediately. However, despite this, the move of Tianjian Gate is still 100 attempts. At least, the 4 families have not been born in peace. This is the situation that Tianjian Gate really wants to see. No matter how the 4 families fight, with Tianjian Gate as a check and balance, it is only his Tianjian Gate that will ultimately benefit. Although the senior management of the 4 families also understand the meaning of this, they have not chosen to live in peace for their own interests. It is precisely because of the overt and covert struggle of the 4 families that Tianjian Gate has an extremely terrible background in the overall strength of the 4 major gates, which is also the place that Tianjian Gate most frightens the other 3 schools. He was so angry that Zhuobentang didn't bother to argue with Huobiye that you were right and I was wrong. This time, all of them came for the ancient ruins. Before they came here, the owner repeatedly told them that no matter how much conflict they had with the other 3 families, they must first focus on the ancient ruins. As long as they got the treasure in the ruins, the other 3 families will clean up in the future. At the thought of this, Zhuobentang took back his eyes and whispered a few words to the young people on the side. Immediately, he turned around and went to the place he had already booked. Later, a group of the Hua family also followed Huobiye's instructions and went to their predetermined foothold in advance. Among the crowd, Xiao Yan glanced at the 2 people respectively, but he couldn't help laughing. The more crazy the dog bites the dog, the better. It's also convenient for him to fish in troubled waters at that time. Otherwise, if they show harmony, Xiao Yang will have no bottom in his heart. Seeing that the 2 families left, Xiao Yang simply showed his unique step and disappeared into the crowd. After a short moment, he had returned to the temporary inn. After entering the house and confirming that he didn't attract attention, Xiao Yang sat down on the bed and began to think about the next action in his heart. Earlier, while Zhuobentang and Huobiye drank and scolded each other, Xiao Yang also quickly explored the overall strength of the Hua family. In addition to the leading Huobiye Nai, who was a strong man in the early stage of the 3-star fighting emperor, there is another young fighting emperor in the Hua family, just like the Zhuo family, and its strength has reached the level of the later stage of the 1-star fighting emperor. Although it is not comparable to the 2-star fighting emperor of the Zhuo family, Xiao Yang can't underestimate it. At the same time, Xiao Yang's heart can't help feeling a deep shock. In just one day, he saw 2 strong men of the same generation fighting the emperor. When he met this kind of thing, even with Xiao Yang's nature, he also felt a shock in his heart. After returning to his mind, Xiao Yang straightened out his thoughts. Now, he has seen all the 4 families under the Tianjian clan. From the 2 people just now, they are obviously not the heads of the Zhuo family and the Hua family, but they should be just the deacon elders of their respective families. Even so, their strength is almost the same as that of the Bai family and the Sun family. It's hard to imagine how powerful the patriarchs of Zhuohua's 2 families will be. I'm afraid the lowest will be the 4-star fighting emperor. With this in mind, Xiao Yang could not help but tighten his mind slightly. At the thought that the opponent he would face in the future had been strong enough, but he was still wandering at the semi-imperial level, which made Xiao Yang feel like a thorn in his back. Alas, strength, in this world, without strength, it's really worse than even a piece of shit. He scolded angrily in his heart. Recalling the arrogant look on the young man's face before, Xiao Yang immediately felt unwilling. In the twinkling of an eye, only 5 days remained before the opening of the ancient ruins. Finally, until today, 2 breath familiar to Xiao Yang appeared over Shilin City. Sun Shuo, Bai Ying. He whispered the names of the 2 people. Xiao Yang's body sitting on the bed was motionless. Although the 2 people came to Shilin City, Xiao Yang was not worried about being found by them. With the black robe condensed from the Void Avenue, all the breath of Xiao Yang has been covered up. Now, no one can find out his breath unless he takes the initiative to release his breath. At the same time, when Bai Ying and Sun Shuo appeared over Shilin City, the other 2 in the city also noticed their breath at the same time. Suddenly, 4 eyes shot out together, and there was a fierce confrontation in the invisible void across layers of buildings. Over Shilin City, the arrival of Bai Ying and Sun Shuo also immediately attracted the attention of many people in the city. For the 2 patriarchs of the 2 families who have been making a lot of noise recently, everyone has a theater attitude. Now when they appear, they will inevitably cause a commotion. Hey, isn't this the head of the Sun family and the Bai family? It's said that the 2 families were fighting for Xiao Yang 3 months ago, but it seems that the head of the Bai family should take him away in the end. Hey, it's not true. They were not only taken away by the Bai family, but also in the Sun family's headquarters and in Hanshi City. It's said that after this incident, many elders of the Sun family were dismissed by the Sun family leader, and even several senior elders were killed by him in a rage because they didn't dare to fight Xiao Yang. Do it. Are you kidding? I was there at that time. You don't know that Xiao Yang was not generally fierce. He abused people all over the city with his own 6-star and half emperor. But there were more than 10 9-star and half emperors present at that time, and there were countless 7-star and 8-star ones. But even so, in front of Xiao Yang, people were like hammering watermelon, one punch at a time. Lin has a total of 100.5 strong emperors. All of them were killed by him alone. Let's talk about it. At that time, the people of the Sun family were scared. Who dared to go up and take it? Wouldn't they be looking for death? That's right. Later on, even the head of the Sun family ate flat on Xiao Yang's hand. Half of his face was beaten, which was bigger than his original head. Even the head of the family was made like this. Can anyone go on again? No, it's said that Bai Ying could easily take Xiao Yang away at last because Xiao Yang expelled the head of the Sun family and was injured. Then he took the opportunity to take Xiao Yang away. Otherwise, hey, it's hard for the Sun family to say. In the city, people looked at Bai Ying and Sun Shuo in the sky with a playful look, and boasted about their knowledge of the amazing war in Hanxi City 3 months ago. However, unconsciously, the topic of the people quietly shifted from Bai Ying and Sun Shuo to Xiao Yang, which made them sit on the bed at the moment, and the Soul Force found that Xiao Yang, who was talking to everyone, had a slight change in the expression on his old face. He felt a burst of embarrassment in his heart, and even some in his heart wondered whether Xiao Yang mentioned by these people was him or not. Although this is not the first time to hear such public opinion, it is really too exaggerated. Above the sky, Sun Shuo and Bai Ying have different faces. They listen to the whispers from the crowd below. At the moment, they also have different thoughts, especially Sun Shuo. After hearing the words of the people below, the whole person's face can be said to be extremely gloomy. Looking back on the incident 3 months ago, it was a big pain in Sun Shuo's heart. If Bai Ying hadn't suddenly shot at that critical moment, Xiao Yang would have been in the bag of his Sun family, but the final result was unexpected. At this moment, recalling the scene when Bai Ying suddenly shot that day, Sun Shuo's heart suddenly burst out with an unknown fire, and his fierce and domineering eyes pierced the void in an instant, shooting at Bai Ying, who was also standing on the void opposite like a sharp arrow. In the face of Sun Shuo's invisible momentum oppression, Bai Ying was not afraid at all. His big sleeve suddenly waved, and an invisible momentum spread rapidly on this void. At the same time, it also easily blocked Sun Shuo's invisible strength. After finishing these, Bai Ying put his hands behind him, looked at Sun Shuo with an unhappy face, and snorted in a low voice. "Grandson, but I don't know what that means." As soon as he blurted out his words with a faint threat, the people below immediately became quiet, and their eyes followed the prestige. Finally, they stopped on Bai Ying. Immediately, they couldn't help laughing secretly. Bai Ying's words obviously had some obvious meaning. They clearly knew why Sun Shuo was angry, but you can say these words to stimulate him. Bai Ying's move seems to be deliberately looking for trouble. Bai Ying, you know what you're asking. If you hadn't made trouble that day, Xiao Yang would have been in the bag of my Sun family. You dare to speak so loudly in front of me now. How can I bear you? Sure enough, after Bai Ying's words fell, Sun Shuo's face immediately became as gloomy as water. With the angry scolding in his mouth, Sun Shuo's body suddenly shook and his powerful momentum immediately swept out of his body. In a twinkling, almost everyone's faces changed suddenly in the sky and underground. The frightened eyes looked at Sun Shuo in an instant. At this time, the latter waved his big hand violently. A fighting rainbow containing his inner anger and terrible momentum immediately blasted Bai Ying with an overwhelming and amazing momentum. The terror of this attack made the faces of all the people in the city below turn pale. Even some 9-star and half-emperor strong people quickly turned pale under the momentum of this attack. The strong fighting emperor is really strong. If these forces fall on any half-strong fighting emperor in Xiafang City, they are enough to kill them instantly. Of course, among the so-called half-strong emperor, Xiao Yang will not be included. After all, Xiao Yang is a strong fighting emperor in everyone's heart. Sun Shuo, can't you wait to fight my Bai family? With a cold hum, Bai Ying was not afraid. As soon as the soles of his feet stamped the void, a strong fighting spirit swept out in an instant and turned into a purple thunder dragon with thunder flash. In the twinkling of an eye, he collided with the oncoming rainbow. Boom! Suddenly, the earth-shaking roar burst open, and then a powerful energy storm swept across the sky. Seeing this scene, the faces of all the people in the city changed again. At this moment, the two leaders of the Zhou family and the Hua family, a wrinkled old face, gradually crowded together at this moment. They stared at the sky at the moment, and showed a deep and dignified color in their deep eyes. When the energy storm dissipates, the sight of Sun Shuo and Bai Ying falls again between heaven and earth. In the distant sky, Bai Ying stared at Sun Shuo with a cold face. The fighting spirit in his body surged secretly, and the palm under his sleeve robe slowly shook up behind him. At the same time, Sun Shuo, standing on the opposite void, also had a cold face, and his momentum surged out, making the surrounding void fluctuate violently. Although the power of the attack just now was not weak, they were equal in strength. Under the attack, neither of them was hurt. However, it immediately made the atmosphere in the field tense, and a strong smell of gunpowder lingered between the people's noses. Sun Shuo, are you really going to fight with me here? Bai Ying's eyes were cold and his tone was low. Now the ancient ruins are about to open. Although he is not afraid of Sun Shuo, he doesn't want to cause too many troubles before that. What nonsense are you talking about? 3 months ago, when you robbed Xiao Yan, you should be ready for it and dare to rob my son's prey. Today, I'll make you pay for it. Hearing Bai Ying's words, Sun Shuo immediately snorted angrily. Immediately, his body trembled suddenly, and a residual shadow remained in place. His figure appeared in front of Bai Ying in a flash. He clenched his hand into a fist and hit Bai Ying's head. Sun Shuo, you are really stubborn. If I hadn't robbed Xiao Yang in that war, it would be your Sun family who suffered when the mysterious strong man came. You just don't thank me now. You dare to bite the hand that feeds you. It's really unwise. Sun Shuo suddenly came forward. Bai Ying's face also became cold and solemn. His body blocked the family younger generation behind him, and his tone was cold. At the same time, the palm behind him suddenly raised, his wrist turned, the palm was facing Sun Shuo in front of him, and he greeted him with a backhand. Bang! When the bang fell, Bai Ying couldn't help but withdraw half a step backward. With a slight frown, his body suddenly shook back, and immediately glanced back at the family children behind him with the rest of his eyes. When he saw that they were not affected by the battle, he turned back his eyes with a gloomy face. Sun Shuo, since you want to do it, Then, when Bai Ying stared at Sun Shuo, who was shocked back from the opposite side with a gloomy face, a young man in a white robe quickly came forward and pressed the palm clenched under Bai Ying's sleeve robe with his hand. Father, no. The low voice that can only be heard by the two people was quietly introduced into Bai Ying's ears. Immediately, Bai Ying was slightly stunned. He took a deep breath and nodded. The gloomy color on his face also gradually returned to calm. The purpose of their coming to Shilin City this time is to get the ancient ruins. Before that, they can't miss the treasure in the ruins because of any mistake. On the other side, seeing Bai Ying take back his momentum, Sun Shuo bit his teeth and looked gloomy. When he wanted to start again, on his side, a young man in white robes suddenly appeared and stopped Sun Shuo's move to do it again. Father, it's not the time to start now. Don't forget, there are still people from the Zhou family and the Hua family. These two families are looking forward to us fighting with the Bai family. At that time, once both of us lose, the ancient relics will be occupied by them. Hearing the speech, Sun Shuo seemed to wake up from a dream and remembered the main purpose of his trip. Although he still had anger in his heart, he put the overall situation first. I'm afraid he can only push back for a while. Bai family, I'm Sun Shuo. Sooner or later, I'll let you kneel in front of my Sun family, and the Zhou family and the Hua family, too. Taking back his eyes, Sun Shuo still grinned and scolded with a bitter face. On the other side, Xiao Yang, who was sitting on the bed at the moment, also slowly opened his eyes and shrugged his shoulders. He thought there would be a good play to see, but unexpectedly, the sons of the two families stopped immediately as soon as they appeared. Alas, I thought I could sit on the mountain and watch the tiger fight. I didn't expect it to end like this. Slightly lazy, he straightened his chest. Xiao Yang jumped up from the bed, and his heart moved. The broad black robe immediately condensed out, wrapping Xiao Yang's whole body, which is illegible. However, I heard that guy called Sun Shuo's father just now. It seems that guy is Sun Shuo's son. Who? He is another fighting emperor. However, judging from his breath, it should be a breakthrough in recent months. This is different from the man half a month ago. Under Xiao Yang's soul power exploration just now, Sun Shuo's son actually seems to be a strong man fighting against the emperor. Although his breath is not stable, What is certain is that he is indeed a strong man fighting against the Emperor. When Xiao Yang compared with the Imperial robbery half a month ago, it can be roughly confirmed that the Imperial robbery, it should be caused by Sun Shuo's son's breakthrough. It's really unexpected that these three families have really deep inside information and have pushed their son's strength to the level of fighting Emperor. But what's strange is that they clearly understand that family is the third of the four families and press the head of the Sun family. How can they be Bai Ying's son and fail to reach the level of fighting Emperor? With a slight frown, Xiao Yang couldn't help feeling suspicious in his heart. However, after a little thought in his heart, he had to put the reason on his cultivation talent. Immediately, Xiao Yang stopped thinking about it, pulled the black cloak on his head, moved his steps and was ready to go out. In the exploration just now, the strength of the son of Sun Shuo, the last of the four families, has reached the level of 1-star duty. On the contrary, the strength of the Bai family, Bai Ying's son, is only 9.5 stars, but far away from the level of duty. This is the reason why Xiao Yang is curious about it in his heart. But then, just as Xiao Yang raised his feet and walked to the bedroom door, the bone in his body suddenly made a sound. Hey, boy, you don't really think that the boy of the White family has only 9.5 emperors? Heh! Hearing Ji Yu's words, Xiao Yang wanted to stretch out his hand to open the door. Immediately, the look on his face under the black robe changed slightly, and the whole person was so fixed in front of the door. Yes, that boy, on the surface, his strength is really only 9.5 emperors. However, this should be because he has something hidden in his body. His real strength is not inferior to that Shuo boy. There is a trace of solemnity in the tone of Guyo. For this kind of person, we have to pay attention to it. When Xiao Yang heard Ji Yu's words, the pupils of a pair of dark eyes suddenly contracted to the size of the tip of a needle. He was also very surprised at this. With his soul power, he didn't find out the real strength of that guy. The White family is really deep enough. It was not until after the good film was carved that Xiao Yang took a deep breath and showed a dignified color on his face. At the same time, he said to the bone at the bottom of his heart, Ji Yu Lao, do you mean? His real strength is also a 2-star fighting emperor? This video will end here.